like the day of the movie, the day before the movie, all gather. We had this big dinner. It was lovely. And I'm talking, I see Quentin. Oh, I'm so excited. He goes, oh man, you're going to love it. You're going to love the way the movie came out. You're going to love this. And then the next day is when we actually had the big premiere, at the Grand Palais, the big deal. And we go, and it's the moment, and I'm in my seat, and the girl I was dating is with me, and the curtain comes up, and the movie starts, and I'm watching the movie, and my soul starts leaving my body.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Today's guest is an absolute delight. He's wise, insightful, fun, plus he's a fantastic storyteller, blended with charm and humour. He's a mensch. I love him, you'll love him, and you can see why he's loved by all and been in the industry for so long. Also, Sam's story of love and loss and the learnings and takeaways behind them are simply brilliant, and we could all do with a bit of the Samm Levine outlook. Okay, so let's get straight into it and officially introduce today's guest. Samm Levine is an actor, comedian, producer, and writer who you might recognize from his many roles in Freaks and Geeks, Inglourious Basterds, Not Another Teen Movie, Wet Hot American Summer, Modern Family, Club Dread, That 70s Show, Entourage, Drunk History, Kevin Pollak's Chat Show, Rob Riggle's Ski Master Academy, NCIS, Family Guy, Veronica Mars, and How I Met Your Mother. As you can imagine, we dive deep and cover a lot, such as conflict, performing stand-up from the age of 12, being cut from Inglourious Basterds, getting Lisa Kudrow's blessing, money advice, the levels of success, gratitude, changing mindsets, perception, his baby face, and how Adam Brody ruined the Jewish look. Before we get into this epic chat, if you'd like to keep up to date with the latest info regarding the podcast, follow Funny in Failure on Instagram and Facebook. I often post short clips and other cool stuff to keep you in the loop for upcoming and previous episodes. Also, if you'd like to follow me personally, I'm on Instagram and Twitter under Michael_Kahan. That's Kahan with a K. And lastly, the podcast comes out every week, 5 p.m. Mondays, Australian Eastern Standard Time. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any other terrific episodes. I hope you enjoy. I saw this video clip of you with, what's it called? Drop Girl with Ice Cube and Redford.
Yes, that checks out.
That is the funniest clip I've ever seen. Please tell me about your experience about it and how you got it.
Well, LA is one of those funny towns where, especially if you have social media, someone, you sort of know, you tangentially know, will reach out and say, hey, I'm doing something. I thought of you for it. Any chance you're interested and available? And that's pretty much exactly how that job happened. An acquaintance, a pal, reached out to say, I'm directing this music video featuring 2 Chainz, Red Foo, and Ice Cube. And we need nerds. I was like, okay. He goes, now I know that's not appealing, but it's cool and it'll be fun. And we're shooting and it's an all day thing. And we'll put, you'll be a scientist. And I said, dude, I'm in. I'm fine. And so we shot it here in LA. I drove there, and some of the people involved were significantly late based on the call sheet time. But I guess hey man, that's not my world. I'm not in the music video business. I think that's just how it's done. Oh, really? So yeah, I guess so. I don't know. But yeah, I was there for several hours and we shot a lot of really, really silly stuff. And the musicians in question were all very cool, very relaxed, very fun guys to hang out with and shooting a fun music video. And and then I really didn't know what to make of it until I saw it and went, oh, all right, that's what they were going to, I see what they were going for. All right, I'm happy to have been involved.
Was it very funny when you were doing it, or you couldn't really tell?
I genuinely couldn't tell. We shot in like this warehouse space, and you shoot tiny little 5-10 second segments, and that they're all going to get edited together later. So I had a vague idea of what it would look like, but yeah.
I just find that so funny. Like a nerd, you and me, we're both Jewish. I would have never have thought that would be a possibility for our kind to appear with these like heavyweight rappers. And then you're like, it's just such a funny clip. I'm going to upload in the episode notes so people can see it.
Please do. Hey man, somebody's got to work, the beakers.
And does it annoy you with the late side? Because I know we've had a lot of guests talk about how sometimes there's divas in the acting world, or even in the comedy world, or just the creative fields. We do have some divas that are quite late. Does that drive you nuts?
Wait, divas that are light?
Late.
Oh, late. Apologies, the accent.
Australian accent.
It's snuck in there. Does it bother me? Sometimes more than others.
Okay.
In that particular instance, I'm the guest on their set. So I said I can shoot all day, and I was there no matter when they showed up or whatnot. It was fine by me. If it's the kind of thing where, I'm if I'm doing someone a favor and they're late, that's not cool. That I take umbrage with. In that situation, it was fine because, I was being paid to be there, not much, but like I was happy. It was a fun day for me. Yeah. I felt like they were doing me a favor by inviting me to come play in that sandbox. Because like you, I'm like, yeah, there's no way I'll ever be in a rap video, ever. And there I was. So for me, that was fun. I didn't care. It's their ball game, their show. They can do it however they want. But like if somebody says like, "Hey man, we can't pay you anything. Can you come shoot on our short film?" I'm like, fine. And then if I'm there at my call time and like the director or number one on the call sheet takes 90 minutes to get there, that's not just insulting me. That's insulting everyone.
What do you do?
Depending on the situation, I'll either let it slide, or if it's a situation where I'm going to be on the thing multiple days, I will politely pull whomever it is aside and say, listen, if the call time says 8 a.m., I'm going to be here at 8 a.m. and it would be really awesome if you could be too.
Oh, so you're pretty good with conflict.
I try. I'm not always good. I haven't always been good at conflict. Like most things in life, you get better with age.
Oh, you have to tell me the history of this.
No, there's no history. Just in the old days, I would. So something for the record, I spent many years in therapy, which was wonderful.
Everyone needs therapy.
Everyone really should do that.
Yeah.
And so one of the things, a memory that I had that was like a fuzzy memory. I remember I was on set and it was really late, and we'd been shooting all day. It was Friday. We'd been on, so that means we're going to shoot until we're done. Getting everything we need. So we were on set easily 18, 19 straight hours. It's 4 or 5 in the morning, into Saturday morning now. And we're doing this big crowd scene. And I'm 19 years old. And the background actors were making a lot of noise. And the first AD was trying to give direction. Okay, and you guys are going to do this, you guys are going to do this, and the background was making a lot of noise. And he'd already asked them to, settle down a couple times. And he's trying to give direction, and they're making too much noise. And he says something like, guys, come on. And then I just, I'm 19, I'm exhausted, and I was just sick of it. And I went, shut up. The sooner you shut up and listen, the sooner we all go home. Why is that so hard to grasp? And the pragmatic side of me is like, there's nothing wrong with that. Of course that made sense. But the realistic side, I realized later that immediately got me a terrible reputation amongst that group of background actors, because you're not really supposed to yell at them. That's not my job.
Yep.
That is definitely the first AD's job, and he was not doing it. So I felt like he needed an assist. And so, it was definitely the wrong way to say the thing that I wanted to say. So that was something I remember talking about with my therapist going, there's obviously a million things you wish you could undo.
Of course.
But that one always bummed me out because it was just such a quick moment of impulse. And then it tainted an entire room full of like 100 people. And I remember like 5 years later, I was on another thing and one of those same background actors was working on that and kind of like approached me and was like, "Oh, you're on this." I was like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Oh, you're going to be an asshole like you were on that last thing?" And what happened there, by the way, I felt terrible about because she was, well, again, pragmatically speaking, she was right to call me out on it. It was a shitty thing that I had done years earlier, but then she now equally was wrong. Like, you don't just say that. And so I didn't take offense to it. I was like, "Hey, wow, all right, you got me, it's fine." But the problem was she said that directly in front of one of the PAs to me. And then the PA, without even asking me, immediately went and told the assistant director department. And then they fired her without asking me, without telling me what was going on. They just did it. I had no say in that. I didn't know about it until after she'd been sent home that day. And
wow.
So then I was like, I can't win. Like, the other actors are going to think I had her fired.
Of course. So what do you do?
I went on with my day and I felt bad, but I mean, it's one of those shitty power dynamic things where like, well, why were you allowed to yell at the background actors, 5 years earlier? I shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
But I did, and by the way, I was not yelled at, but I was reprimanded by the first AD after the fact. After we finished that scene, he pulled me aside and went, "Listen, you really should never talk to the backgrounder or anyone on a set that way." And I was grateful because, again, I was 19 years old.
Of course.
Like, only in show business is a 19-year-old considered an adult.
That's so true.
Anywhere else, you're like, "Well, he's a fucking kid. Well, he didn't know any better." But in showbiz, if you're like one of the main actors on the thing and you happen to be 17, 18, 19, "Oh, yeah, he's a grown-up." No, I wasn't. So, yeah. You learn, is my point, to get back to it. With time and experience, you learn, hopefully.
That's true. And you would have probably seen a lot of people that have learned and then some people that haven't learned. And I guess that's kind of the nature of the business, unfortunately. But it's also nice that you've reflected on it and you realize like where you can improve. But also at the same time, that person was probably one of the group that was extremely loud. Also, 18 hours set. Does that still happen? That's insane.
That does still happen.
Oh,
yeah.
How does it work? Do you get breaks?
We call them fratter days.
Ooh.
So actually it did change now. The last contract negotiation between the actors union and the producers there is language in there, not necessarily to stop something like that from happening, but at least to encourage it to not happen and make it harder for it to happen.
Okay.
In terms of break time, once you wrap that day, how soon they can call you back in. So with film sets for forever, it was always a 12-hour turnaround for actors. So if you shoot until 7 p.m. at night, they can't ask you to be there again the next day until 7 a.m. They got to give you at least 12 hours to yourself.
That's pretty good.
Which is good. I mean, that's door to door. So, you still have to factor in commute time, sleeping, showering, getting ready, to show up to set or whatever.
And
but 12 hours as unions go, the actors pretty much have the best one. So I won't complain. But then what would happen is they would cheat with the weekends, because once you're shooting on Friday, who's to say what's 12 hours between Friday night and Monday morning?
Oh, that's so scum.
It is scum, but that was the way it is and still is the way it is on a lot of sets for a very long time. So crews, call them fratter days, because you'll start shooting. So that 12-hour turnaround, the reason it's a thing is so if you start shooting Monday morning at 6 a.m., but then you go 13 hours. So now you've gone 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. So now you can't come in Tuesday until 7 a.m. And so let's say you shoot 15 hours. So now you can't come in the next day until 10 a.m. And so by the time Friday rolls around, you'll have a call time of noon. Because they legally can't start any earlier than that if the days keep getting longer. So if you don't start at noon and you're going to go 15, 16 hours, you're going to be there until the middle of Saturday morning. So crews call them fratter days, and I don't enjoy them either.
I don't blame you. I would also imagine, and we'll get into it in a sec, that you've chosen this field to play and have fun and unleash or show your creative aspirations. And then there's also kind of like the bullshit side, like working those hours or even having divas on set. What's kind of your relationship with like the push and the pull of the creative and the fun, and then dealing with all, let's call it the business side?
That is a good question. And I've come to really, truly appreciate what I do, especially given the last 2 years.
Nice.
I've always known I am a very lucky person to get to do this for a living. Most people hate their jobs, and I don't blame them. Most jobs are very hard, and they don't pay very well, and they're not fulfilling.
Yep.
So I don't blame anyone who hates their job. A paycheck is a paycheck, and that's how I feel when I take crappy jobs. Hey man, a paycheck is a paycheck. Like, my friend Kevin Pollak and I, he's been talking about this for years, and I join him. Why are actors the only people not allowed to work for a paycheck? You're in a crappy movie. You're in a movie featuring fast cars, let's just say, and you're an Academy Award winner. And then people are going to sit there and judge you. Oh, what are you doing slumming it in a movie like that? There's no artistic merits in a movie like that. Oh, well, they offered me $4 million. I'm supposed to say no? Why are actors not allowed to work for the paycheck like everyone else in life? So, but to that end, again, I am very lucky. So I've tried really hard to make sure that I don't forget that. And yeah, there are lots of crappy parts to the job, like 17, 18-hour days, but they're not every day.
Yep.
And if I do have to do 17, 18-hour days, my only hope is that it's on a project I really care about and I'm invested in. Because if it's on one of the crappier ones that I'm there just for the money, it's a little less, it stings a little bit. I know a lot of people would probably wonder, well, don't you get overtime? Not really. It depends on the contract you signed, and most of the ones I sign, I'm not entitled to overtime. Okay. I'm there. It's what's known as run of picture. So they could use me one day, they could use me up, 50 days, however long the project is, and I get paid the same.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
I didn't know those contracts existed. In terms of the gratefulness side, it sounds like you've had, because you said that you constantly remind yourself. Did something happen, or has this just been a process of realizing what you're doing? And
right. Nothing, no one specific thing happened. It's just, I've been here now in Los Angeles 23 years, and I've had lots and lots of friends come and go. And I'm very, very lucky. I've never had to get a real job to support my acting goals. I've always been able to support myself fully as an actor in my chosen field.
So
and
cool.
I've had so many friends who, they have day jobs, they have weekend jobs, they have night jobs. It's a hassle when they would have to ask a boss for time off to go to an audition. And if they do get a job, it's one line and it pays scale. And, it's sometimes they're going to lose money working a day for scale on a set than they would at whatever job is their day job. But they take the gig because they want to build the resume. And then the last 2 years, this pandemic has changed so much for so many people. And I have had so many friends leave LA the last 2 years because prices have only gone up.
Oh, really?
For everything. Yeah. Everything's more expensive now than it was before the pandemic out here. Rent is higher. Home prices are higher. Groceries are more expensive. Prices at restaurants have all gone up to make up for the lost business. Everything here is more expensive now than it was 2 years ago. And the amount of work available has gone down.
That's insane.
So I don't blame anyone who left town.
So how do you keep a optimistic mindset with just to go back, as you said, a lot of people have jobs, so they've got that, they know that money's coming in. But as an actor, as you know better than anyone, you don't know when that next paycheck's coming in. So especially during the pandemic or even just in general, how have you been able to kind of stay motivated and true to yourself and your craft?
Well, I won't lie. I don't panic because the good, successful years that I've had, I save that money.
Oh, nice.
I don't own a boat because you get a wonderful, rainy year, and then I've had bad drought years.
Yeah.
And so early on, I was very lucky in that I had smart people, smart older actors telling me, save this money. Do not go buying a fancy car. Do not go buying a condo. Save your money. Let it sustain you. Live comfortably, but not above normal means.
That's awesome.
And I was very lucky to have older, smarter actors tell me that because it stuck. And I've certainly had plenty of friends who I've seen not follow that advice. They get on a series when they're 19 years old and make a couple $100,000 and then buy a house with it. And then the show gets canceled. And then they don't work really anything that pays well for 2 years. And that house is back on the market at a loss, So I've seen that too, and it stinks. So, I guess I try to stay optimistic because I don't know. I have such a love for the unpredictability of show business. I am a gambler at heart, so I love the unpredictability. I've talked about this before, and possibly my favorite thing about show business, at least as it pertains to me, is at any minute, day or night, that phone could ring. And it could be, hey, you're embroiled in scandal, whether or not you did anything. Hey, you're embroiled in scandal. Your agent's dropped you. I'm your manager. I'm dropping you. And the press is going to hound you, and you're going to have to leave town. Could be that. But also, the phone could ring. Hey, some giant director saw you in some show and is a big fan of yours and wants you to come in and read for a role in his war movie. That's not how that went down, but it could be.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's
okay,
exciting.
You get that phone call too. Hey, turns out somebody's a fan and they're offering you a job. And it pays a healthy 6 figures and you'll be in Europe for 6 months. You go, great! Terrific, let's do it. I'm in. And what other job has that? What other line of work can the phone ring and it's either you're ruined or everything's wonderful?
It's so exciting on that end, but also, does it mean that you're constantly glued to your phone? I know when I'm getting an exciting guest like yourself, I'm waiting for my emails, and that can kind of just
you're very
distract
sweet.
Me in a sense.
No, I'm not really glued to it because back when that started, a cell phone only took and received calls, or made and received calls. Now phones are a different beast, and it's a bummer that we never changed the meaning of the word, or we never changed the word. We just changed the meaning of the word.
How so?
So if in 1999, I said, oh, if someone was always on their phone in 1999, that meant this. Now, if he's always on his phone, it's this.
Oh yeah, holding it as opposed to having it to that. Yeah.
And it's so much more. 23 years ago, you're on your phone, you're talking to someone. It's a phone call. It is an instant back and forth, and that's all it is a phone call with another person. Now, phones are, they mean everything. It's your email, it's texting, it's surfing the web, it's apps. The dogs don't care for it either.
I'm at my girlfriend's place because our internet wasn't working, believe it or not, and she brought our dog, which was not a smart idea.
Yeah, it's all right. The dog is fine. The dog will understand when he's older about cell phones.
Oh, he understands right now. I'm also very interested when you received that advice. When you did Freaks and Geeks, you would have been, what, 17?
17.
And so you're kind of thrown into the Hollywood arena. And so it's nice. I assume you probably got that advice around about that time. But that still would have been quite crazy going to an experience like that, right? Where you like throw it into the world of Hollywood. How did you like cope with that? And did you think that the money would be rolling in and you would this would be your life?
I'll tell you. So I was living in New Jersey. That's where I was raised when I booked Freaks and Geeks. And so when I had to come out to LA to shoot the pilot, and then when they picked the series up, I was going to have to move to Los Angeles from New Jersey to, shoot the series. And this sounds terrible, but in my head, maybe the last 3 or 4 years I was a teenager in New Jersey, mentally, I wasn't living there.
Oh, interesting.
In my head, I was already living several years ahead in my life. At that time, planning what college I was going to go to. I was already doing stand-up comedy at that time. So
you did it when you were 12.
Yeah. So what depending on what university I went to, what clubs around it I could find, where I was going to get stage time, what theater program I was going to do, how far I comfortably wanted to be from Manhattan so that I could still come into town for auditions. So I was already living ahead of that. And my goal was always to move to Los Angeles and properly have a career there. I didn't think it would happen when it did. Yeah. I thought I would have to toil away for at least another 5, 6, 8, 10 years before I got something that brought me out there. But it was always in the end game for me mentally. So when I did get this job and I moved to LA, I felt like I'd only accelerated what was a foregone conclusion anyway.
Oh, so that was your plan A and you're going to do it no matter what. Yeah.
I was always going to end up there. But it was nice that I got to do it so much sooner than anticipated and on someone else's dime. They pay you to relocate.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not much, but just a couple $1,000s to get you from A to B and get yourself set up.
Yeah, but at that age, that's pretty crazy.
It was wonderful, and I could never, ever have done any of it without the support of the world's greatest mom. And my mother has always been so tremendously supportive, and she moved with me, leaving my father and brother to fend for themselves in New Jersey. So she could be with me out in LA, and she was wonderful. And when you are under 18, by the way, and you get paid as an actor, at that time, 30% of your gross paycheck goes into a trust. A blocked trust that only the young person, can access once they turn 18.
Interesting.
Those are called Coogan laws. I think they've since changed the number to 15%, which is a bummer. But back when I was of that age, it was still 30%. And that's because child actor Jackie Coogan from the 1920s and 30s, he was very, very successful and made a lot of money. And his parents spent all of it. And he saw none of it.
Oh.
So they made laws to protect child actors. So not that my mother was ever going to spend my money. She was amazing about it and made sure I had everything set up properly.
That's fine.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And made sure I had everything set up properly. But it was certainly nice to know that no matter what, when I turned 18, I was going to have access to that pool of money.
And this can go so many different ways because you're doing stand-up from the age of 12. So was stand-up on the mind, or were you doing stand-up so that the acting would be opened up?
I started stand-up so that I would open doors in the acting world. And then I continued doing it until I was about 22. So I did it for about 5 years in New York, and then not as often, but still fairly often here in LA for the first 5 years I lived here. And I stopped doing it for a couple of reasons. Chief among them was when I started doing stand-up, it was to open doors into the acting world, and I'd felt like I'd already opened enough. And the other reason was I was not great at it.
Really?
Yeah, I was okay. I could work a room. I knew how to tell a joke, but it takes a tremendous amount of work to be a really good comedian. It takes an okay amount of work to be a mediocre comedian. Yeah. And that's what I was. I was putting in just enough work to be just okay. And I didn't have the love for it like I did when I first started when I was 12. No, I'd sort of fallen out of love with it, and it didn't have the same appeal to me anymore. And then I stopped doing it, and then maybe 8 or 9 years after that, I dipped my toe back in just to sort of see if I could. And the problem then was, you have to be on stage 5 nights a week.
I know, it's crazy.
You know, if you really want to do this. And stage time is from 7 to 10 o'clock at night, every night. Maybe 11, 7 to 11. And if you want to have a relationship, unless you're dating a fellow comedian, no one wants to date a comic who's never around most evenings of the week. And I was dating someone, and it was problematic, and so I stopped. Not dating the person, it's doing stand-up.
I understand. Yeah, that's the kind of the reality, because stage time is how you get there. And also it's not, for me, that's also been an appeal for me to not pursue it, is I don't have the passion. And it's very late. For us, it can be later than 11 as well.
Oh, sure. And it should only be pursued by people with an undying passion for it, by the way, as anything in the arts.
Yeah. Especially
and parenthood.
And we see
That's
a lot.
Big one for me.
Yeah.
Unless you really, really, every day you wake up, you're like, I need to parent something. Unless you're waking up like that, don't have kids.
That can just be like a universal TED talk that I highly recommend you pursue.
Thank you.
Could change the world. Never know.
Believe me, I'd like to. Thanos had some good points. That's all I'm saying. There are way too many people and way too many shitty people procreating.
Well, we'll agree. I'll agree with that one.
Yeah.
And in terms of the stand-up aspect, did it give you good or bad habits? Because I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, as a 12-year-old, you can get away with a lot. But at the same time, you also have to develop things that perhaps other people wouldn't be able to as well.
Sure. I mean, I had to develop a pretty thick skin pretty early, because when you're 12 years old and you're on stage telling, jokes to a bunch of drunks in New York, you will get heckled. And I did. I don't know how else to explain it other than it never felt unnatural to me to be on stage. It was instantly my comfort zone. And so I felt very comfortable on stage. And I think, honestly, it was a mixture of narcissism and naivete, at that age, at least. Because, the idea of going out there at 12, 13, 14 years old and telling jokes that I wrote, in homeroom. and thinking, oh, these are really good. I should try these tonight. And doing them, it felt perfectly normal to me, which of course it wasn't, but it felt normal to me. And so, you'd have one of the first ones, some guy said something like, all right, kid, bring on the real comics. And, and I just looked the guy dead in the eye and I went, oh, no, sir, I am the real comics. This is not a bit. You are stuck with me for the next 7 minutes.
I love
So
that.
smoke them if you got them. The bathroom's that way, or shut the fuck up, man. I'm working over here. And that's just how it came out of my mouth.
You sound like and I've been listening to you as well, a very mature young boy as well.
I appreciate that. I had my moments, but I've always been a child. There were like any person, you have certain aspects of your life where you're wise beyond your years. You've got a good head for it. You can hang with any grown up. And then you've got other aspects of your life where you're perennially 9 years old. And I think that's everyone. That's what I've come to figure out over the years is, you're so mature for your age. I'm like, yeah, when I'm doing stand up on stage. But if we're playing a video game, I'm going to get as competitive with you as I would be if I were a petulant 7-year-old.
That's true. A lot of people are still scared, or through my environment, are scared to show that childlike, that inner child, to show it to the world, that they see it almost as a weakness. And for me, it's been about unleashing and going back to that child. And what would that child be happy and the play and the fun and all of that. But I've seen that it's not that common if you're not in the creative field. Obviously, there's exceptions. And so to me, it's like the best thing ever to just play and have fun. But you don't see that all the time.
Right. You do not. And that's why, it was so unusual to see a kid doing stand-up. I really think it was the naivete that led me to really pursue it like I did.
What was the school and your family? Were they worried? Were they happy? What were they thinking at the time?
My family, as always, from day one, supported me all the way. The school, that was a different issue. I was under strict orders from my parents that I was not allowed to tell kids at school that I was going into New York several nights a week to do stand-up comedy at nightclubs.
This is so fascinating.
This was the early 90s, the mid 90s. It was different. The notion that two respectable parents were letting their child do that, they worried it would reflect poorly on them. I don't blame them. Plus I would always try to get booked on the early show, the 7:30 show, and I'd try to go up early so, I could do my 8 minutes and be in the car back home to Jersey by 8:30. But if the only spot I was getting offered was 10:45, I'd take the spot. And my mom was awesome, and she'd take me in and I'd do the spot. And, I'd stick around afterward to talk to some of the older comedians who I looked up to, who would help me with my jokes. And, we're not leaving the city now till midnight. She's not going to make me get up for school 6.5 hours later. So, she'd let me sleep in till 8 or 9, whatever we could get away with. And then she'd give me a note, and I'd go into school with a note from my mom. Sorry, Sam was unwell this morning. I let him sleep in. Please forgive him, and he'll make up any assignments he missed.
Oh, that's amazing. I love your mom.
I love her too. She's the greatest. What kind of mom does that?
I'm also thinking, actually, I heard this story, and this will relate well, that when you were deciding if you wanted to be an actor, that you use, what's her name, Lisa Kudrow? Is that how you say her name?
Lisa Kudrow, yes.
And she spoke to you, and she gave you great advice, and you used that as ammo to tell your parents that this is what you need to do. And you had the backing of her. Is this correct?
I did. And that wasn't whether or not I wanted to be an actor. That was to pursue anything at all. I hadn't really thought about a professional career up until then.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
How old were you at the time?
I was 12. I was just doing stand-up comedy at friends' bar mitzvahs. I didn't think about going pro. And it was so I did stand up at a friend's bar mitzvah, and she happened to be this friend's cousin. So she saw me, and after my set, asked me if I was a professional, and I said I was not. And she said, "Oh, well, maybe that you might want to consider pursuing that. You seem, like you knew what you were doing at such a young age." I said, "Okay, cool. How?" She said, "Just go buy Backstage magazine This is New York. Buy Backstage, which was at the time, it was a weekly printed periodical that was everything showbiz related, specifically to New York. And in the back of Backstage were, classified type ads. So you'd see smaller companies looking to attract actors to represent. Or if you were a good company, but you were a niche company, you'd put an ad in there so that people would know, if I'm a juggler who, swallows blades and spits fire, and you'd look through Backstage, you go, seeking people who juggle and spit fire and swallow swords. That's the manager I should call.
But you actually juggle, which is...
I do juggle, but that's a whole other... I'm not professional. I'm not a professional juggler. I'm a juggler for funsies. But anyway, that's what she said. Go buy Backstage. I'm sure you can find someone to represent you. And I went home. I said, Mom, Lisa Kudrow from Friends said I should be a professional and that we should buy Backstage magazine, and let's do that. And she said, fine. So we bought Backstage magazine, and in that very issue, there was an ad in the back. Are you a kid? Do you do stand-up? Call Gold Star Talent Management.
Gold Star.
They'll represent you. And I did. I went in, I took a meeting, and Sid Gold and his partner Paul were my very first managers. They were the first people to say, okay, you should be a pro. We will represent you. Let's get you started.
This is like ridiculous in the most positive way. A 12-year-old pursuing stand-up just happens to meet one of the biggest stars in the world, and especially at that time. And they're like, you should get into this industry.
Right.
That doesn't happen. That's amazing.
It does not happen. So cut to 5 years later. That was 94. This is 99. I'm out in Los Angeles shooting the pilot for Freaks and Geeks. And I come to learn that the costume designer on the pilot of Freaks and Geeks, the wonderful Deborah McGuire, is also the costume designer on Friends. And I tell her that story. And she says, that's amazing. Hey, what are you doing this Friday night? I said, nothing. She said, that's when Friends tapes. Come to the show. You'll be my guest. I'll reintroduce you to Lisa.
Wow.
That also happened to be, by the way, my 17th birthday, that very night. So
I love you and your lives.
Yeah, right? So I go to the taping of Friends. She takes me backstage. I go meet Lisa again in the hair and makeup, and I remind her of that story from 5 years earlier, and she immediately goes, what? No, I didn't have anything to do with that. You'd have figured it out eventually. I was like, no, really? I might have, but it might have taken me years. The only reason I'm standing here right now, talking to you in Los Angeles, shooting this pilot, is because you told me I should get started.
That's so cool.
And she refuses to take any credit whatsoever.
That speaks. She's a legend.
She's awesome.
It's so nice that you have people that can provide you with life-changing advice. You talked about money, and that's really important in this industry as well, because as you said, the highs and lows where you're not working, you actually said that you had, your words, a good, successful few years. What do you mean by that? I would view your whole career as a good, successful years. I'd like you to explain this to me.
Absolutely. So people have asked me that over the years. What's your definition of success in show business? And for me personally, my definition has always been if I can provide for myself. If I'm solely allowed to pursue my career in the arts without having to get a real world job to keep a roof over my head, then I am successful. Because in the Actors Guild, at any given time, only 7% of the union is working. So that means I'm in a business with a 93% unemployment rate.
Crazy.
Those are staggering numbers. People talk about the unemployment rate in society and like, oh, it's getting up to 10. And you go, how about 93?
I never thought about it like that.
That's how few actors are working at any given time. So the fact that with numbers like that, I'm able to find enough work and make enough money that I can afford this palatial mansion that is definitely not a green screen you see behind me. No, so like that to me is successful. Like, oh, but what about like being like the star of a movie or like having your own series? I'm like, sure, that'd be great, but I'm already successful. I have been doing this nonsense now for 23 years without having to get a real job. That's crazy to me. If you told that to 16-year-old me, 15-year-old me doing stand-up on the New York stage, oh, don't worry. You'll be fine. You'll make enough money as an actor to live comfortably for at least 23 years. I don't care what happens after today. I will always feel pride for the 23-year run that I have had getting to do this. So if I do get that phone call and it all comes crashing down tomorrow, so be it. I'll do something else. But I really, like, I have to pinch myself all the time that I get to do what I get to do. So that's my mark of success. Would it be nice to be a movie star and get paid millions of dollars? Sure. But now we're splitting hairs. Now we're talking about levels of success.
Yes.
And I'm very comfortable and very grateful for where I am.
I love hearing it. I love this positive mindset. It sounds like you don't have any regrets or no like.
Oh, of course I have regrets.
But in terms of that, if you were, this is a bit gruesome, if you were to die today, you would still like smile on your deathbed and say, you know what, I gave it my best.
Yes, that is correct. I don't know why I'm dying, but I get such a deathbed. You've got to tell me the circumstances of this. How long is this deathbed? Is it seconds? Is it like a Signs situation where the car is pinning me against the tree, and once they move the car, then is it like that?
Scary Movie 3 version, yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
I've never referenced Scary Movie at all. I'm so happy it came about in that way.
Well done, and solid reference, by the way.
Thank you.
And I think they did a similar thing on South Park. Also had a similar, they're being held in place by this thing. It was a woman getting sucked down the toilet.
Oh.
That's what it was. Yeah,
okay, I'll have to watch it.
Anyway, I'd be very, I'm sad I'm dying, but I can't be upset with the way things have gone. In terms of regrets, of course I have regrets. If I had just delivered this line differently in the audition, maybe that's why I didn't get that job. Oh, if I had just, shot the shit with that group of people for 10 seconds longer before I started doing the lines, maybe that's what did it. So
all that stuff,
all that stuff. So of course I have those kind of regrets, but in terms of, regrets that keep you up at night, I don't really have a whole lot that are showbiz related. They're more personal relationship related, that kind of thing. Because this is such a weird, fickle business. And I hate that people let it affect them the way that it does. Like when young actors ask me for advice, oh, how do you handle the pressure of an audition? Like, you prepare as best you can. And you go in and you do that. And if you feel confident when you leave the room that you gave the best audition you could give, your work is done. It is out of your hands. And, that's really how I feel, not just about that, but about a lot of things. Like, if I'm confident that I did my best in something and whatever it is doesn't go my way in the end, I lose zero sleep over that.
That's so awesome.
Because, again, this goes back to something I said a while ago. I'm a gambler, and that's sort of the zen of the gambler is, so let's say you're a sports bettor, which a lot of people are. It's grown tremendous popularity. So if you do the work, if you read the charts, if you do all the predictions, if you look at the weather and you look at the statistics, okay, and when this guy pitches and it's 60 degrees or less, he tends to, throw a lot of curveball, whatever it is, if you put the work in and you, based on what you're looking at, know that you're making the right bet, if it goes the other way, it's not like you missed something. You did everything right. That's just bad luck. And you can't lose sleep over those. And that's how I feel about acting too, at least auditioning.
I think that's really important because there's only so much that you can do. And especially in acting, you might be the best person, but you don't know if someone's already got the role. You don't know if the chemistry is not right. Your eyes, you're too small, blah, blah, blah. Things so out of your control. It's
completely out of your control. Absolutely. And so the idea is whatever audition you gave at the time you gave it, whatever bet you made at the time you made it, you have the confidence of knowing with all the available information, with all the available prep, I could not have done it better. I could not have made a smarter bet or done a better audition. What happens after that, it's up to the gods.
I have like 20 questions. We'll see how we go.
Okay.
In terms of the confidence and the validation, because I know that every person, regardless if you're in the industry or not, we tend to get our confidence from external success. But as you know, that is not healthy, and that's not going to fulfill us or keep us going a long term. So have you had to kind of like change your relationship with confidence? Because if you're being like rejected all the time, maybe not working, you can feel a bit low naturally. But if you're doing the best job that you can, then you can at least see that you're doing something positive for you.
Yeah, absolutely. What with being a 12-year-old stand-up comedian, going back to the narcissism, I always had a unnaturally healthy ego, especially at that age. I'm happy to say it has softened significantly in my old age, but I remember being 12 years old, and I remember just being so over my schoolmates. I take it back. That didn't really happen until I got to high school. But by the time I got to high school, I was like, fuck these kids. Fuck this building. Fuck this life. This is so temporary. I have so many cool things in my mind that I know I'm going to do. Nothing here matters. Nothing here matters. Fuck all of you. I don't need the adulation of my schoolmates. I don't need to be invited to parties. I don't need to be asked to hang out. That didn't matter to me. I made myself confident based on total naivete about what I had to offer the world, and yeah, I was over high school freshman year. I was done. So that sustained for a while. And I'd like to think that as I've matured and grown up and become an adult who turns 40 next week,
Happy birthday.
I'd like to think that I have transitioned that arrogance into a healthy level of comfort with myself,
Very nice.
my place in the world, and knowing the things I can do on my own that make me happy and feel good about me.
Oh, that's the goal, right?
I hope so. I think
journey.
so. I mean, this didn't come up a lot when I did therapy, but like self-image came up a lot.
Yeah, especially in Hollywood as well, perception.
And so the notion of like, how do you see yourself the way you think other people see you? And is there a difference between the way you see yourself and the way you think other people might see you? Because then there's the third thing, which is the reality.
Yep.
But we all have the two things of how we see ourselves and then how we hope other people see us. And then there's the reality. You have no control over the reality, but you have total control over how you see yourself. And then based on choices you can make, you can help at least make yourself feel like other people probably see me this way now.
So how would that work? Like with acting, for example, we
Yeah.
can be boxed in, and I'm just making this up. You've mentioned like playing a nerd and might have a certain look, so people can box you in that regard. But you might see yourself as, and a guest said that they saw themselves as like Josh Radnor, like the cool Josh Radnor. And then they were seen as like the nerdy little Jewish boy. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with either of those images. But the reality was everyone saw them in one regard. But if you want to see yourself in a certain way, then the casting people see you in a certain direction. Like, I don't feel like I'm that person. How do you battle that? Or do you realize that that's like a separate game?
Okay, first I have to ask, was it Josh Radnor who said that, or was someone comparing themselves
Someone
to
comparing, it was Josh Brenner, I believe.
Oh, okay.
He saw himself as Josh Radnor, and everyone else saw him as a very nerdy guy.
Wow. Okay. Good for them both. All right. To answer that question, so that's actually been a huge, I don't want to say hurdle, but it's been a frequently something I come up a lot against in my career, especially my early career. And Judd Apatow and I had a running gag about it, which was Hollywood really only sees me as one of two things. I'm either a nerd or a mean nerd. And that's what I did for the first 10 years of my career, maybe more. I was the go-to nerdy guy. And what really screwed me, by the way, was in the early 2000s, there was a TV show called The OC. It was a big hit here in the States.
Yeah, it was
and
very popular here.
Adam Brody was on that show. And Adam Brody is an extremely handsome, charismatic man. But the writers of the show decided to make his character, Seth, Jewish. Oh, he's the Jewish guy. And so then for several years after that, when casting would put out for any, casting directors were looking for someone, they'd go, we're looking for, Jewish actors. And then I'd show up and they go, oh, like Seth from the OC Jewish. Oh, you're not looking for a Jewish actor. No, that's not really what you're looking for.
Yeah, we don't look
and
like
that fucked a lot of guys like me over for a couple years. It was genuinely really hard. Because the problem is my agents would see a role. Oh, they're looking for a 22-year-old Jewish guy. And they'd send me in. And I'd be sitting in the waiting room with a bunch of fucking models. I'm like, why does it say Jewish? What are they talking about? I'm fucking George Costanza here. That's Jewish.
Like blonde hair, blue eyes, tall.
Oh. So anyway, that rant aside, that sort of thing was hard for me for a while, and then I embraced it. At a certain point, you have to, and so that was fine. I don't like. It's my job to act. If I wrote the thing, I can complain about how I'm being portrayed. But if I didn't, and I'm a hired gun, and you bring me in there to play this part, that's my job. I play it the way it's written and the way the director asks me to play it. Which isn't to say I do that across the board every time. Like I'll offer feedback or say, hey, this feels a little disingenuous for my character to say this thing this way. Can we figure out a way that's more comfortable for me? I'll have that conversation.
Yeah, of course.
But in terms of, being seen a certain way as it pertains to the way show business saw me, that was my cross to bear for a long time. And so when I turned 30, then I was encountering a secondary problem, which was because I had the baby face still. I'm 30 years old, so my agents are now sending me out for roles where I'm supposed to be, late 20s or 30. And I'd show up in the waiting room, and then everyone there looks 10 years older than me. I'd go in and I'd read for a role, and I'd go, oh, yeah, no, this is supposed to be Tracy Morgan's college friend? I don't think they realize how I look. So I grew a beard. It was the only thing I could do to get rid of the baby face, to at least remind casting directors, hey, I am an adult person. Lots of adult people look a little young, but this here face sweater, maybe that'll change some minds. And it did. I worked a lot more shortly after I grew the beard, and then I've had to shave it a couple times, but by and large, I've had the beard now about 7 years.
That's awesome. And we've had so many examples where people embrace how they're perceived, and then they go the other way. One example that springs to mind is we had Scully, so Joel McKinnon Miller from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and he changed his haircut to that buzz cut. And he said he's never stopped working because he embraced that side, which is just, it's awesome that when someone can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just find it so awesome when every single person or the vast majority of people on this podcast have had that like push and pull of how they're perceived and how Hollywood perceives them and being boxed in. And if you do a really good job in this one area, then people try and get you to play that role all the time. And, you know, as an actor and wanting to like play in this field, you want to play a range of characters. You want to do so much things. And I find it so counterintuitive that you are rewarded, like especially like voice actors, for example. I'm going on a massive tangent, but
No,
as a voice actor, if you do such a good job that no one recognizes it's your voice, you get rewarded for not being who you are. Then if you play the same character, you're being rewarded for playing the same character, but then you're boxed in playing that one character and there's not that like range. And I just find that weird that it almost at some level forces you to be boxed in to be successful, whereas worldly is to be holistic and to be able to play a range and do a range of things as well.
For sure. No, you're absolutely right. And there are plenty of actors who do the one thing and then that's all anyone wants of them. I suppose I could talk about him by name. Matthew Perry has been understandably frustrated for the last kind of 20 years because it's tough. He's really talented. And he's, tried to do a whole bunch of different things, like Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip was an Aaron Sorkin show he did, in the mid-aughts, and that was a very different role from Chandler, but he's not really been able to make anything stick. And we had him on the chat show a couple times, and he sort of talked, openly about this. I'm not speaking out of school here. But he was like, yeah, it's tough, like, that was a role I did for a decade on a really successful show, but I'm an actor. Let me do other things, but nothing after that really clicked. So, I mean, look, those are champagne problems, yes, but it's still sucky.
Yep.
I mean, if you are a creatively driven person like he is, to not really be able to take any role you want, to be sort of stuck playing that very specific thing that Hollywood wants you to be always. So, I remember years ago, Curtis Armstrong. You know who that is?
No.
Okay. Curtis Armstrong was Booger in the Revenge of the Nerds movies. Okay. Before that, or during that, he was on a TV show called Moonlighting with Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd. And years after the show ended, that was in the 80s, years after the show ended, he was the only actor to come back to do like a retrospective look back at Moonlighting. And I'll never forget this. And so I'm watching him do this talking head interview and, sort of reflecting on the last 25 years, whatever Moonlighting. He's like, I'm so lucky because Moonlighting gave me this great springboard and I've been able to do so many different things. And, so many actors, they do one role and then it doesn't matter how much they work after that. Like that one role is all anyone ever thinks of them. And I've been so lucky because that show gave me a springboard to do so many other things. And people know me from so many different things. And I remember sitting there eating my popcorn and like dropping it going, you are a talented motherfucker. But if you can find one person under 30 who knows you as anything other than Booger, I will eat this bowl. And I've never met Curtis Armstrong, and I don't mean that as a mean story. Like, I think he is tremendously talented. He's in the movie Ray. He played Ahmet Ertegun in the movie Ray, and he's unrecognizable in that. He's a chameleon actor. Like, he's super fucking talented. But I just remember hearing him say that and going, I guess that is how he feels, and maybe it's a generational thing. Like, he's in the movie Risky Business. He has the great line in Risky Business where he says, sometimes you just got to say, what the fuck? Like, that's Curtis Armstrong. But like, so within a certain age group, and I guess I'm the Goldilocks zone of that age group, like, I had seen him in a million things, but I was like, bro, you're Booger. Come on, man. What are you doing? So I guess it's however old you are when you see an actor in a thing, to that generation, you're that thing. So I get that I am Neil Schreiber to a certain generation. And then to another generation, I'm Pilgrim Boy from the Aquabats.
Oh, so funny.
Or something else. So,
or the Ice Cube, the lead scientist in the Ice Cube.
or nerdy scientist. from the Ice Cube video. But yeah, so it's just one of those things where that's a game that I get to play, that I've been playing now for 20 years. So I'm at a restaurant, or usually it's a bar. People are pretty decent at restaurants, but I'm at a bar, and someone will come up to me and say, "You look really familiar. Are you an actor?" And I say, "Oh yeah, sometimes." And they'll go, "What did I see you in?" Which is, by the way, the worst question you can ever ask an actor. It's the worst question. People don't realize that. Everyone does it. No one realizes how insulting it is, how shitty it is to put it on me now. Jeez. So that's the game I get to play with myself. Now I can play based on what I'm guessing their approximate age is, nationality, that kind of thing. I can go, "Oh, well, you're probably a fan of Not Another Teen Movie." And they'll go, and I've gotten better at the game over the years. Go, "Oh, shit, that is it." But sometimes I go, "No, that's not it." I'll go, "No, if it wasn't Freaks and Geeks, I'm out."
It'd be great, which is amazing that you figured it out. It's like when someone's like, "You're a comedian, tell me a joke," and everyone's got that one standard joke.
Right.
Is if you've got a lookalike, just say that you're someone else. And then... Yeah.
Let me tell you my favorite one that I do. I haven't had the opportunity to do this in several years, but I used to. I would say I would get away with this about 2 to 3 times a year. I'm at a bar, and a dude bro who's had a few to drink will approach me. And then they will ask the crappy, bad English version of, "Are you an actor? What did I see you in?" They'll say, Hey, man, you're an actor, right? What you playing? Man?" And I'm like, and I go, "Oh." And so I would always wait. I would only do this if they had like other guy friends with them. No, I recognize you, man. What you playing? Where I see you? What I see you? And I go, "Oh, I mean, I'm an actor, but it's not a big deal." No, come on. What were you in? And I go, "I do gay adult films. Do you really want to talk about that here?" No, you must be somebody else. That's one of my all-time favorite things that I've ever gotten to do to assholes at bars.
Oh, that's the best. Can I steal that?
By all means. That is my gift to the world.
Oh,
like that's not how you approach a person, and you don't badger them. No, what was? Bro, I'm having a drink with my lady friend. What do you want from me? Ask better. Pick your moment better, man. Wait till she's in the bathroom.
Or like you're on the knee about to propose. It's like, "Hey guys."
Right? Like I get it. It's part of the job. I don't mind people approaching me because they recognize me for something. I don't mind it in principle. Yeah. But it's the timing and the lack of awareness that I wish people were a little bit, better with.
More tact.
Just have a little more tact with how you do it. And honestly, I've always said, like, smartphones were a game changer for that. An absolute fucking game changer. So you see someone you think is an actor across the bar. There are 100 people in that bar. Ask every single one of them, "Does that guy look like an actor to you? Who do you think that is?" "Yeah, that guy at the bar. Who is it? Who is that guy?" And then someone will go, "Oh, that's Josh Radnor," someone will say. And you go, "Oh, cool. Fuck, well, I recognize the name and he looks so familiar, but Google it. Fucking Google Josh Radnor." And then his whole resume will come up. So then by the time you walk over there, you don't have to say, "Hey, are you an actor? You look kind of familiar. What did I see you in? What's your name?" You walk over and you make his fucking day. You go, "Oh, Josh Radnor, I'm the biggest fan. Your work on Not Another Teen Movie and How I Met Your Mother. Yeah, they changed my life. I'm such a big fan. Can I get a quick selfie with you?" And now you've made his day. Because he doesn't need to know that 4 minutes ago you just sort of recognized his face. Do the work, people. That's all I'm saying.
Public service announcement. I'm going to plug that. We're going to put that everywhere. We're going to rent an article in the New York Times. People need to know this.
People need to know. That's the proper way to approach someone you vaguely recognize.
What about just staring at them uncomfortably and then taking photos of them when they turned around?
Yeah.
And
Oh, you mean this one? You mean this one where someone does this? Where they're right up against me and doing this? Yeah, I definitely don't see that. That's cool.
It's like, oh, what's that? Or you pretend to take the selfie and it's going the other way and then the light goes off. Oh, you would have experienced it all. This is material. This is great material.
This is material.
But also, I would imagine. So I know this is very loaded and we'll see how we're going with time.
Okay.
And
okay.
I'll get to my point in a sec. You're in Inglourious Basterds, which is probably one of my favorite movies of all time. And I know that you had an amazing time. You got along well with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great experience for you and you loved the movie yourself. But I also could tell even before doing research that that movie would be heavily edited, and knowing how he writes, he'd probably cut out like half the movie. At some level, I know that you were one of the main bastards, but you would have had so many lines cut, and that is a game-changing movie as well. Can you tell me what you were thinking about that, and then I'll get to my point?
Sure, man. Yeah, you are absolutely correct. You can read the original screenplay for the movie. It's been out in book form for some time, but it's on the internet. Has been on the internet since before they even made the movie.
I do screenwriting, and I've always wanted to read.
Okay, yeah. So the original draft has existed on the internet for 13, 14 years, whatever it is. So I read that draft, and that was the draft of the script that I said, yes, I would love to be in this movie. And when we got over there, we shot quite a bit of that. But then as production went on, we're cutting this scene. Oh, we're not going to get to this scene. And but still, I was very grateful and very happy with how much footage I was in and speaking in and having dialogue with Brad Pitt and dialogue with Til Schweiger and, goofy throwaways we had with the bastards. And, you wrap and then it's out of my hands. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I'm told the movie's going to premiere at the Cannes Film Festival. The studio can't get you there or do anything, but if you get yourself to Cannes, we will get you a ticket to the premiere. And I said, fair enough. So I did. I spent a small fortune making sure that I could be at Cannes. Because here's what they do. When you get into Cannes, they don't release the schedule until like 3 or 4 weeks before the festival.
Oh, interesting.
So if you wait until then to find out when your movie's going to be screening, if you wait until a month before the festival to try to book accommodations on a flight, you're going to be paying €1,000 a night for a shoebox.
Jeez.
Cannes is not that big. So the flip side was I got a shoebox, but because I rented the room out so far in advance, I rented it for the length of the festival.
Genius.
I spent the exact same amount of money as I would have spent if I'd waited until a month before. So it was very expensive, but on the plus side, I was there for all of Cannes. I got to see a lot of amazing movies that year.
And you're a movie buff.
And I'm a movie guy, so I have no regrets about that. But it cost me a fortune to be there for that.
I thought you meant you rented it out to someone else. That's why.
Oh no, I wish. Yeah, and I slept. I slept on the Riviera. It was terrific.
Cool.
No, so like I'm there. I come to find out we're closer to the end of the festival. What are you going to do? So, but it's fine. So I get there like the day of the movie. The day before the movie, all gather. We had this big dinner. It was lovely, and I'm talking. I see Quentin. Oh, I'm so excited. He goes, oh man, you're going to love it. You're going to love the way the movie came out. You're going to love this. And then the next day is when we actually had the big premiere, at the Grand Palais, the big deal. And we go, and it's the moment, and I'm in my seat, and the girl I was dating is with me, and the curtain comes up, and the movie starts, and I'm watching the movie, and my soul starts leaving my body.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm watching every scene, and I remember what we shot. I'm like, oh, we just cut to that next. So no, we're not coming back for any. Okay. Oh, and that's cut to. Oh, and we've just skipped there's like 20 pages that we didn't. wow, okay. And I have, in the finished cut of the movie, I have one on-camera line. And I have no ill will. I have no regrets. I'm fine with it. I have long since come to embrace the fact that that means I have one line more than everyone who is not in that movie. I have one line more than everyone who is in the movie with no lines.
Yeah.
I was there for it, okay? The experience, no one can take that away from me. There are actors who worked for weeks on that movie who are completely cut from the film.
Oh, really?
Cloris
actually,
Leachman,
that makes sense. Yeah.
completely cut from the film. Maggie Chung, completely cut from the film. Entire storylines, gone. So at first, in that moment when I'm sitting in the theater, I was ill.
Yeah.
When I saw, in my mind, I knew all the stuff that I'd shot and then what it ultimately looked like. It was shocking. It was very surprising. Not how much of my stuff had been cut, but I was frankly a little surprised that no one from the film side thought to tell me.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
How drastically my role had been cut down. And not just me, so many of the bastards. And, you know, they knew I was going to fly myself to Cannes to be there. So, whatever. I have no regrets that I went. I'm glad that I went. I'll probably never have another movie in Cannes. That's fine. So I've got my one Cannes experience. But, you know, I was 27. That was actually the year that I've determined is when my head started to come out of my ass.
So it was a positive life change.
Was when I was 27 years old. That's when I made a lot of major changes to my personal life and how I dealt with disappointment. While we were shooting Bastards, at one point I had like a 10-day break. And so I went to Italy and I had someone join me that I very, very much wanted to be in a relationship with. But she did not feel the same way. And at the time, and I want to preface this by saying she and I are fine now. But at the time, she was stringing me along. Because it was a fucking free trip to, Germany and Italy in it. So we had this very uncomfortable for me trip kind of in Italy. And then she had to go back home and I went to Rome by myself. And I spent 3 days in Rome and I walked up the Spanish Steps, which are beautiful. And you can sort of just sit there for hours. There's wonderful people watching. There's food vendors. So you won't want for anything. And I sat there on the Spanish Steps for a good 3 hours, just realizing like a lot of things that I'm doing and allowing to keep happening to me are making me very unhappy. And I need to break this cycle. And I hadn't been to therapy yet. So first decision I made was when I get back home, I'm going to go into therapy. And then the second decision was I'm mature enough, I'm smart enough now that I can no longer pretend I can't identify the bad behaviors that I am either doing myself or allowing to keep going.
Yep.
Like the stringing along.
Yep.
So I made that decision there. I had a couple other relationships that I was not happy with, and I knew I had to end. And so that was it. I was there. It took me hours sitting on the steps there. I went through many frozen beverages, or for the ice chips, whatever they had there. And I made some crazy major life decisions sitting on the
so
steps.
awesome.
And I went and I finished the movie, and I came back to the States, and I fulfilled my promise to myself. I immediately started going to therapy, and so that was right before I turned 27. So this would have been in the fall of 2008 when I was 26, and then I got home right before the year changed, and so my birthday's at the beginning of the year. I turned 27, and I made crazy big changes for me that I knew, or I hoped, would let me be an overall happier person than I was, and would leave any sort of childish, immature ways behind. And so, yeah, 27 for me was a big year
And with the
of getting my shit together.
were the results profound quickly, or was it a bit of a?
Some of the relationship results profoundly affected my happiness quickly. Other stuff took years. But the best thing I ever did for myself after that was start therapy. And by the way, people often think like, oh, if you go into therapy, you're in therapy forever. Not at all. In fact, when I sat down with my therapist on our first meeting, she asked me what I wanted to get out of it. And I said, I need to get my head on straight. You know, I need to, I feel like I'm lacking certain emotional tools to navigate aspects of my life. And my hope is that once I have those tools, I will not need therapy the way I feel like I need it now.
Yeah. Good
And
baseline.
And she said, that's perfect. Let's start there and see where we go. And so I think I did 5 years, maybe 6. But by the end of that, like, easily our last 4 months of sessions were us sort of realizing like, no, big changes have been made. Like she said, I can show you my old notes from when you first came in. And there are repetitive passive destruction you used to engage in that you've not talked about for years. And I was like, thank you. That was great. Like, we did it. Like, I'll always have room to grow and become a better person. But I left her sessions with a couple of goals, but one of them was, and this, I hate to get too flowery with you, but this really is true. Every single day of my life, in any way that I can, whether it be the tiniest little thing or something big, my goal is to make the world a better place than it was when I woke up that morning.
No, I love that. That's why we do the podcast.
Like, if it's something as small as a barista at Starbucks hands me my drink and I notice that she's got pretty nails, I will say, your nails look fucking amazing, by the way. Thank you. Have a great day. It can be that small, or it can be, I spend a day doing charity work and anything in between. But like, that is my goal every single day. I don't always meet the goal. I will tell you straight up. It's a goal, not a mandate. Like, I'm going to fail. But that is something I strive for every single day, to make the world a little bit of a better place than it was when I got up.
Beautiful. That's exactly why we do the podcast, and it's not fluff whatsoever. That's similar to me as well. I very much appreciate you bringing that up. That is a beautiful way to end the podcast. Before we go, how can people follow you, keep up to date with you? I know you're on Cameo and you deliver bad news.
I do.
Hilarious.
Thank you.
Actually, just quickly tell me about the Cameo. Why the bad news, and then tell me where.
Okay, here's what I do on Cameo. I do the standard stuff that everyone does. I do birthdays, graduations, weddings, congratulations on the birth of your 7th son, whatever. But what I really enjoy doing on Cameo is either breaking bad news to people or apologizing, because people are really terrible at those two things, as I've come to learn.
Yep.
They're terrible at them because nobody wants to do them. So if you don't want to do it, you don't do it, and then you never get any better at it. So I really don't mean it as like a joke. Like, I've broken bad news to people. Like, I've not had to deliver any earth-shattering bad news.
No, like
bad news, like, no, I haven't done anything like that. But it's like, so one time was a coworker wanted a video for their coworker, or a person wanted a video for their coworker because they were like best friends at work, and this person had been offered a better job elsewhere and took the job and was about to give their notice and really truly could not find the way to say to their best friend coworker, I'm going to be leaving and we're not going to see each other every day at work for 8 hours anymore. And he knew it was going to crush this other person. But he's like, I'm just not good putting bad news like that into words. You know, I help me. And so I said, got it. And so I had to have a little back and forth with the guy before, and I was like, tell me a little bit about your friend. Tell me the kind of jokes you guys make. And I got that information, and then with pleasure, I made like a 4-minute video of being like, this is not, they're not dead. It's just adding a hurdle to your friendship. You know, and your friendship's going to be stronger for this hurdle because you guys are going to overcome it, and you're still going to be friends, and it's going to reinforce that you weren't friends because you were cubicle mates.
That's beautiful.
You know, so it's like, so the movie Robin Hood Men in Tights, there's a really funny scene in there where Roger Rees, the sheriff of Rottingham, has bad news he needs to deliver to King John. And he says, you know, I have news to deliver. Is it bad news? I'm afraid it is, sir. Oh, I hate bad news. And then he says, oh, well, what if I give you the bad news in a good way? Then maybe it won't seem so bad. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, that lends itself to a very funny scene. But I've always thought, like, what if you could do that? And that's sort of what I'm trying to do on Cameo is let me, if you have bad news that you have to deliver to someone, let me deliver the bad news in a good way.
And that goes to your goals as well, making the world a better place.
That it does.
Yep.
Absolutely. I'm helping 2 people, ideally, with this. And then the second thing is apologies. People suck at apologies because oftentimes they don't know what they're apologizing for. And if it's an empty apology, then it sounds like that. And so I've done several more of those than I've done of the bad news videos. And almost all of them across the board have been men apologizing to their female significant other for whatever. They don't often give me details and I don't pry. But they're like, hey, she's a fan. She knows you from this. Can you just apologize for me being an idiot? And I'm like, okay. Are these grounds for breaking up idiot moves? Or was it like you forgot her parents' anniversary? And most of them are like, yeah, somewhere in between. Okay, fine. I'll do my best. And so then I've got a little bit of a script that I use for those, and I'm not going to blow here, but it's talking about historically well-known people who have made mistakes. And
I'm going to have to get one.
If society were not willing to forgive them, where would we be as a society? So let's take it down to this level. I feel like you have it in you to forgive him. And look, the guy has to be sorry. He spent $60 on this nonsense. So he's either very sorry or he is terrible at decision making, and you should just hightail it out of there. So again, it's an apology with jokes.
Money well spent.
So yes, that's what I do. And if you have bad news or an apology you need made, please find me on Cameo. You can also find me on the other socials, major socials, Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Samm Levine, S-A-M-M, 2 M's, L-E-V-I-N-E. And yeah, that's it. Find me there and I'll keep you updated with whatever's going on with me.
We'll plug that in the episode notes as well as your amazing video clip with Ice Cube, Drop Girl. And I hope everyone sees that as well. You're a mensch. Thank you so much for this. Thank you so much for your time and good luck for your wedding.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's been my absolute pleasure to be here chatting with you. This has legitimately been one of the most fun interviews that I think I've ever had.
Thank you.
Because we barely talked about what every other interview is. Oh, tell me about what Tarantino is like. My hat is off to you, sir. Interviews like this are not easy to plan and navigate, and you did a great job, and this was a lot of fun for me. Thank you.
I love Sam's story of heartbreak and triumph when he discussed his experience with Inglourious Basterds. It can be gut-wrenching when you put in so much time with heart and soul into a project and the end result doesn't look the way you'd expect. However, despite the pain, Sam is able to shift his mindset into a more positive one where he's able to see the beauty. As discussed, an experience can be both positive and negative depending on one's outlook. And what's brilliant with Sam is that despite the expectations we may have, he seems to always have that glass half full mentality. Having the majority of his lines cut and being left with one sentence of dialogue is no doubt a shocking experience. However, for him to frame it as one line more of dialogue than everyone who isn't in the film is truly awesome to hear. The fact that he sees the whole experience as a positive, life-changing experience is a credit to Samm and his desire to bring good into the world. I found this quote which ties in really well by Mark DeVore. Some people see the glass half full, others see the glass half empty. The enlightened are simply grateful to have a glass.
If you like this episode, share it around, tell your mates. It really helps grow the podcast and spread the positivity and love. Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.